On today's episode, I sit down with author Kristin Lee. Kristen is a writer whose work has appeared in Christianity Today and Sojourners, and a primary care physician serving Boston's Chinatown community. She writes about faith, culture, books, and solidarity at The Embers, and is a contributing columnist to The Covenant Companion. Her passion is to highlight literature by Asian and BIPOC authors through book reviews and reading groups on Instagram. Lee's work is informed by her experience as an adoptive mother, host to refugees, and a friend to those who are affected by incarceration. We Mend with God is her debut book. I loved getting to know Kristen. We talked about evangelicalism, how our Asian American identity converges with our Christian faith, the whole writing process, and you will find out who she hopes does not read her book and why. This is a really fun and textured conversation. So thanks for spending time with The Amalgamation, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Kristin Lee. My name is Bruce Reyes-Chow, and you found the Amalgamation Podcast. Each episode, I chat with inspiring humans, activists, artists, academics, and adventurers as we joyfully and courageously co-conspire to make the world a more loving, compassionate, and just home for everyone. Welcome to the Amalgamation. Oh, I'm so excited today. I have met a new best friend. Kristin Lee is an author, Asian American person of faith. And so we've been chatting before this, and I'm so excited about what we're going to talk about today. So, Kristen, if you could just, as I ask everybody, tell us what's important to know about you these days.
Yeah, I love the way you ask that. I'm a mom of 3 kids.
Oh, my gosh.
I am married to, they're, ages 11 to 14,
Okay.
So a little bit more independent than the toddler stage. Married to my college sweetheart, and I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I work as a primary care doctor for mostly Cantonese-speaking immigrants, which is just such a joy to get to use this linguistic heritage, and it feels like caring for my grandparents, which is really special since as part of the diaspora, my grandparents have been in Hong Kong all my life, and so getting to care for these elderly Chinese gonggongs and popos is really fun. What else? I'm a huge reader as well. I review books on Instagram too much. And I'm a writer now too. So I have all these little facets of my life.
I love how you said it. I'm a writer now too. Like it's a surprise. Yeah.
It kind of is a surprise. Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Well, let's just dive in. So We Mend with Gold. Tell us about the title. So I think for those of you that are not Asian American, we may get into the weeds on this episode is my guess, but hang out. Just hang out. You kind of get into a little fishbowl with us today. And I will ask you about how non-Asian Americans can read this as well. But what's the background on the title? That some folks may not kind of immediately connect to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the title is inspired by the Japanese art of kintsugi, which is where artisans take pottery and shatter it into many pieces and then mend it with gold, like gold paint, gold lacquer. And what ends up happening is you get this beautiful object where the fractures are clearly visible, highlighted by these gold seams. But the result is almost, one could argue, more beautiful than if the bowl or the vase was just, left unbroken. And so what inspires me about that is I think there can be a tendency in the American church and also in Asian culture sometimes to squash the difficult parts of our histories and our stories, to not acknowledge our suffering and our pain, and instead kind of have this triumphalist view of God and of faith. And I think that it's so important for us to acknowledge and process our fractures and our pain, both in our personal lives, in our family stories, in our communal histories, in order to really understand where we came from and how we can live with a better vision and path going forward and in solidarity with other people. I think that acknowledging our common fractures is so important. So that is where the title comes from.
All right. Awesome. So part of this podcast, I'm always talking to writers, so give people a little behind the scenes. Did you give them that title, or was there negotiation, or how did that title come about?
Yeah, no, the title, thankfully, oh my gosh, my working title for the book was so bad. And so I had to brainstorm. It was something like Family Matters or something totally ridiculous. And I brainstormed this title, and thankfully it came to me, I think, inspired by, I had known of this art form for some time, and I realized that really is a good reflection of where I would like my readers to go in their faith and in their journey. I brought the title. We reworked the subtitle a bit, but it was mostly there.
That's awesome. Good. Give us a little bit, for those who may not have read or know you, the Reader's Digest version. Nobody knows what Reader's Digest is anymore. I just aged myself. Anyway, the short version, the summary, the executive summary of your faith journey. Give us your background a little bit so folks know kind of the context around your faith component, and then I'll ask you a little bit more of some other stuff.
Absolutely. Actually, Reader's Digest has been a huge part of my life because my parents still subscribe.
Do they really?
Growing up as a kid, I was
Does it still come out?
Always looking at the jokes.
Yeah.
It still exists. Yeah. But my Reader's Digest story is I grew up in Iowa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Iowa City, Iowa. My parents are immigrants from Hong Kong. And I grew up initially in the Chinese immigrant church there, which, it wasn't huge. It's Iowa, but there's a university in town where, international students and professors are. So that was my first experience of church, was in this place of actually a lot of linguistic diversity, right? People speak different dialects, the Chinese there, and also national diversity, like Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan. But it was a beautiful community that was really tight knit, that people truly were there to help each other and look out for each other in a world that was often unfriendly to Chinese Americans. And it was a denominational wise that was Christian Reformed, which is kind of from a Dutch tradition, Calvinist, if that means anything to some of the listeners. But to me, it was just Christianity at that point. And then I also started attending. Yeah, it's a church. I started attending also a big white evangelical church in town as I became older and couldn't really understand the Chinese sermons. So I started attending that in high school. And then also a Korean youth group on Friday nights that was a totally different setting as well. So I had kind of this mix of influences growing up. Cool.
And then you kept it through, did you have the college break, or did you keep going? Were you a person that was engaged in the church your whole life?
I was, college was a tough time for me, but I was very involved with my college InterVarsity Fellowship, which is a parachurch organization. Really involved with that. I also started attending the same church that I go to now in college. So I was involved, but my faith was starting to break in different ways in college, and I wasn't ready to acknowledge that. But I stayed involved throughout.
Right.
Yeah.
I was teasing beforehand that you have 12 degrees from Harvard, or your household does. Whatever.
It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. Yeah, both my husband and I are Harvard grads.
I'm just going to assume your parents were really excited, though.
Oh yeah, no, they were thrilled. They were thrilled. But I always felt guilty because I was paraded around as this good example for youth group kids. And I was like, don't do that to them, right? Don't do that. That's so mean.
I can only imagine. It's look at our child's going to Harvard. I mean, it just would have been, gosh. And I'm sure you look back at those moments and all the things you don't want to do, but was done out of love, right? They did it completely love and pride, but
totally.
You watch just how the college thing is now. I mean, my kids are older, and so I've all gone through that whole thing, and it is insanity what college is like. Anyway, we digress. Right. We digress. All right. So you stayed with your faith this whole time. Just tell us a little bit about your backgrounds, so where this merges with your Asian Americanness. So give us the Reader's Digest of your Asian American story.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, in Iowa, I knew I was different, but I tried to minimize my differences because I just wanted to fit in. We can call it assimilation. We can call it internalized racism, whatever we want to call it, right? I just wanted to be like my friends, and who are mostly white. And I don't think I really grappled with what it meant to be Asian American until college and beyond. And it's interesting that you asked that question, because I think there was this parallel investigation of that, and as my faith was kind of falling apart. But I think I wanted to own my identity more in college. So I actually went back to China for a couple summers in college just to live there. And I volunteered at NGOs and stuff like that. But it was really healing, because it was the first time in my life that how I looked wasn't something that set me apart. And it was really amazing to be in my first summer in Nanning in southern China, and just being there's millions of people around me that just look like me.
I've had friends, Asian American friends, who like grew up in Indiana, and then they come to San Francisco, and they're like, "What the hell is happening?" Like, it's almost too much. Like, it's just all of a sudden, you can't all be my family, right?
Yeah.
But it's just like, so how was
Right.
that coming from Iowa City, which I love? Iowa City is awesome. I was there this summer, but
Yes.
going to China where, everybody at least looks like you. I'm sure you stood out in other ways, but what was that like?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the reason why it was so healing to be in China was because actually going to school in Boston at Harvard, it was my first time feeling like people were actually judging me based on my race. Because in Iowa, like I was kind of a known quantity by the time I was in high school. Like I just had all the same friends since elementary school. Like we knew each other. And at Harvard, like people self-selected based on race, like who to hang out with. And that was so foreign to me. And I was like, what is going on? Why do they assume that I love boba and mochi and things I've never heard of in Iowa?
Oh my gosh.
And
you're such a bad Asian. Bad Asian.
I'm bad Asian, exactly. And it wasn't that I didn't want to hang out with the other Asian Americans, but it felt weird to me. And so I think as I was processing all that, which took many years to fully process, I think just being in China, it was like nice to just have that removed as how people saw me. So I could just kind of reconnect with my cultural heritage, my language, and all of that. So it was actually really nice to go there and leave both Iowa and Boston behind.
So when you got there, I'm just curious about this because my experience going to China and the Philippines, when you got there, did folks know you were American?
Oh, yeah.
Or did you fit in?
I definitely stuck out. I was relatively large compared to everyone there. I'm like an average sized person in America. And obviously, like, I had a really bad American accent when I tried to speak Cantonese, and I just looked different, dressed different. And people would, like, ask me, why are you, like, where are you from? You know, like, so I did get some of that, where are you from thing, but it wasn't, it felt very different. Like, there was an understanding that I was Chinese. Yeah.
We did a couple trips with my grandmother who has since died, and went back to my grandmother's village, my grandfather's village, and right outside of Guangzhou. So my family spoke Cantonese, Sayup, but I did not speak it, which we can get to later.
Yeah.
But I remember us walking into my aunt's house and said something, and everybody laughs because my cousins and I had no idea what they were saying. And my aunt turns to us and says, "They said that you're like cows." And we're like, well, that feels not cool. And like, no, that's a good thing. And I'm like, is it? Then we were so healthy. We were so healthy because we were Americans. I was like, okay. But it was interesting. I was like, it kind of translates to some other things that happen here. It's like how we just say stuff without knowing the context of it. Yeah, but no, I just remember it. It was the size thing. All three of us. I mean, we're not big people here. But you get there, and you're all of a sudden, they're looking at you like, who is this cow that just walked into our living room?
Exactly. You're a giant.
So when did your, so I grew up in a historically Filipino church that was, came out of folks who were in the Philippines who weren't Catholic, which is kind of a big deal. And so my Filipino faith piece, I grew up in that. I mean, there was this kind of natural thing that always was part of it. Was that your experience, or did you have to force that together, discover it? How did the Asian American Christian piece kind of unfold for you?
Yeah, it was not naturally integrated for me because the Chinese American church that I went to growing up, we didn't really talk about what it meant to be Chinese and Asian and followers of Jesus at all. We very much adopted Western Christianity wholesale, and didn't really tailor it or adjust it or question it ever, right? And it wasn't until I started really confronting my doubts and questions after college as a young adult and being like, oh my gosh, like I don't fit in with this kind of conservative evangelicalism is the tradition out of which I came. I don't fit in, but I really love Jesus and I want to follow Jesus. And is that possible? And I had not seen models of where it was possible to question and still believe, I guess. And it wasn't until then that I searched out voices that had been marginalized by the church, like women, like Black theologians. And I was like, wow, this is where it's at. Like these people truly are faithful people who want to, follow Jesus and love God, and they're willing to critique the church and where it has gone wrong and bring their own histories and heritages with them. And so that is when I started being like, wait, so these Black Christians are amazing, but what does that mean as an Asian American Christian? Like, what does it mean for me to be that? And that's when I started seeking out the voices of Asian American pastors and theologians and reading voraciously about them, and starting to process and reintegrate my own cultural background with my faith.
So this would have been during college time, before that, after that? Way after.
Way after. So, in college, I was starting to have doubts, but I was actually really scared to look into those doubts, because the way I'd been taught is if you start questioning any of this, like you're going off the deep end, it's a slippery slope, all of that. So I didn't allow myself to look too far outside of the bounds of what I'd been given in college. And it wasn't, and then after college, I was in med school and residency, had kids. And so I was like really swamped for a long time and scared. I was scared. But it was when I had kids, I was like, I'm going to need to know how to answer their questions about God. And not that I'm going to have answers, but I need to know how to approach God and how to approach this life of faith. And that's when I started getting serious about like really digging into these other voices. So it was probably in my 30s, really, that it started, like late 20s, early 30s.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting when, life's seasons and, it's just for everybody. And I think one of the problems often in movements is we just assume everybody to be at the same place at the same time. And if you don't know yet, then we write you off. But it's like, I'm always one of those, welcome to the parade anytime you get here. It's lovely, I think that's one of the things that I think, especially in a little more, progressive theology, or however you want to talk about it, I think if we want to create welcome, it's like genuinely, like when people, wherever they are, you got to figure out a way to.
Right.
So clearly you made it to the other side. So who were your people then as you were going through this? Did you find others who were like, we are going to talk about your book, by the way, at some point, but did you like find voices that were around you that you could talk through all this stuff with? How did you kind of move from the challenging point to the deconstruction to where you are now?
Yeah, I didn't really have people in my life who I could talk to. I did end up seeking out a spiritual director who was pivotal for me. Her graciousness and the way that she made faith and God so spacious were really pivotal. But I started seeking out those voices kind of on my own. So like Rachel Held Evans was key for me, James Cone, Lisa Sharon Harper, Dante Stewart, like all, so much. I could go on forever, but those are some of the people that really helped me see that there was a path forward. And I think when I was doing this, I was probably 26 or so. Deconstruction wasn't a word I was familiar with. Like it was not in our general vocabulary. So I felt very lonely, honestly. I did not know what would happen to me as I started exploring. And yeah, so it felt a little bit uncertain and scary. But I'm so thankful that there were already people leading the way back then and even in decades past, right? To say there's not only this black and white picture of God that we're getting.
I mean, Rachel obviously did so much of that for so many people. And I think her new book just is out now, that the kind of collections of all of her stuff. Is it?
Yes, it's so good.
Of course, I'm talking to a book reviewer. I'm sure you've read it. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Excellent. Highly recommend.
I've not looked at your Instagram, but I'm going to look now. And I hope that there's some like brain candy on that. Or is it all theology and serious stuff? Or is there any brain candy?
Oh no, I mostly read fiction. I read some nonfiction. Yeah. There's plenty of good stuff good. For all readers.
That's great. Well, okay, let's talk about the book then. So we were talking earlier, and you said, "Now I have a book," and you seem surprised. I do think most of us feel surprised. I mean, if you talked to me in high school, and said, "Bruce is going to have, I just turned in a new manuscript. I'm going to have, 7 to 9 books." Look at that flex. They just snuck right in there. I mean, I think a healthy dose of imposter syndrome is healthy, but also we write because we feel like our words can change the world. I mean, I think there is something about being confident in what you believe and delivering it in a way that you think you can, and having other people trust and put the resources behind it. So how did this happen? When did you decide, I think there's a book here? What's the origin story of the book?
Yeah. I mean, so I had spent all this time kind of wandering in the desert of faith and was coming out of that season feeling like, these other voices have really encouraged me and have shown me a path forward. And my church had done a year looking at Black theology and then Asian American theology. And so I was like, oh, this stuff is so good, but why is it not preached from the pulpit on Sundays? Why is it like an extracurricular kind of a thing, right? And I was reading Dante Stewart's Shoutin' in the Fire, which is about his experience as a Black pastor in an evangelical church and being like grieving when Black men were being killed by police and his congregation not grieving alongside him. And he being like, what is up with this? There's something really broken about this kind of Christianity if it can't acknowledge racism. I loved hearing about his journey, and I remembered how lonely I had felt in my years of wandering. And I said, I really want someone to write this kind of book for Asian Americans. And so I tried to find something like that out there, and there wasn't anything. And so I just sat down one day and I was like, I'm going to write this book until someone else publishes it. And I'm just going to try to write it and see if it goes anywhere, because I want one person. I always said, if one person feels less lonely because of this book, it will have all been worth it, because I just remembered how disquieting that experience was for me. So that was the motivation. And thankfully, I've already heard from a couple of early readers that it's really spoken to them. So I've accomplished my goal in time.
What? I'm out.
Not really. No, but truly, I really hope that it's able to meet people who are in that space of like, what does this mean for me as an Asian American who wants to follow Jesus, but doesn't necessarily fit in with what the church is saying.
So into the writing weeds, everybody has book ideas. I mean, like I have people like, I have a book idea. I have a book in me. I'm like, well, you don't actually until you write it. So I'm kind of a hard ass when it comes to people. Sometimes I'm like, okay, just don't dismiss the fact that I wrote a book, because it's not as if I just woke up and rolled out of bed and was like, bleh.
Totally.
But so how did you get somebody to take it on?
Oh, that's a really interesting question too. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just writing this book, trying to put it into chapters that made coherent sense. And then I actually attended a talk by Al Shi, who's an InterVarsity Press editor. And he was like, actually, to publish a nonfiction book, you don't need the full manuscript. You need a book proposal and 2 polished chapters. And I was like, oh, shoot, I've been working on all the wrong things. I don't have a platform. Like, oh my gosh, like, how am I ever going to get published? Thankfully, I had this random Instagram account where I review books that had a decent amount of followers. And even though it's not really the same content that my book is, it was something adjacent to that. And so I started working on building my platform by publishing in magazines, and then also put together my book proposal, shopped it around to one agent who said yes. Thank you, Javon, who shopped it around 2 publishers, and one publisher said yes. And so, I've been really thankful that people have been willing to take a chance on me. I'm not, in writing communities. I'm not in ministry circles and just this random primary care doctor in Boston. So I've been really, really grateful for people opening doors. And yeah, that's how I got here.
That's awesome. And we'll just shout out that it's broadleaf. And so we're,
broadleaf.
So we're both broadleaf people. So they're wonderful. I mean, for religious publishing, they're all different sizes and everything. But they do not sponsor this podcast yet, broadleaf. But
no, my editor Valerie has been just such a bright light to me.
That's who my editor was.
Is she your editor? Oh, I am so thankful.
And now I'm wondering
her.
if they give all Asians to Valerie.
Because she knows what she's doing. She's not Asian, but she really saw the work and understood it and was really respectful of it. So I'm so grateful for her.
When people, I have confidence in my own words, but when people say, we love this sentence, I'm like, well, you could probably thank my editor that she came back to me and said, could you make this sound better? I mean, I wonder if, I remember an early edit with Valerie, she kept saying, I wonder, and I'm like, Valerie, just tell me. I just, like, what? And it got to the point where I get edits back and I'm like, can I just accept all? And she's like, no, you can't just accept all. I need you to actually look at all of them.
Exactly.
That's
I know, right? She's such a gentle and wise voice.
It was so. I turned in my first draft and I thought it was crappy. I just was like, I'm sorry, Valerie. I don't know. It's like 70,000 words or something. I mean, it was just like, and she's like, that's more than we asked for. So I wonder if we can get it down to 40. Like,
I love
I'm
that.
sure we can. Anyway, all right. So you got the book going. You got it. You got somebody to say yes to you, which is a pretty big deal. I think that is. Let's just acknowledge that that's awesome. For first time out of the gate, Broadleaf's like yes, and then so you wrote it. Now tell us a little bit. There's a couple questions I have about the book. Tell us about the book. Just kind of big sweep about it.
Yeah. So it does take readers through some of the things we've already talked about today, like what it was like to grow up in the immigrant church and then kind of deconstructing and decolonizing my faith from the strictures of white evangelicalism. But then it also sets forward what I like to think of as a more positive vision for how we move forward from there, how we reintegrate our heritage and our histories with our faith and with our wrestling with God. I talk about the fractures in our family lives, and I talk about solidarity with other marginalized people and what it means to live into our liminality as Christians and as Asian Americans. So that's kind of the structure of the book. And I also, one of my favorite parts of the book is I interview some other people, include their stories in the book. And I love that. To me, those are the highlights because you can see how Asian Americans are kind of breaking the Asian American dream script and really living into the countercultural and radical love for others. So
that's awesome.
I love those stories.
That's great. I mean, I broke that script a long time ago because I failed calculus. So, whatever.
I love that. You're like,
I used to say I'm doing it.
I broke it by default.
I'm doing it on purpose because the model minority myth is not working for me. So I'm taking one for the team.
There you go. Exactly. You led the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that was a profit before I knew it. Failing all my science class. Anyway, so I love this because let's get this one out of the way. So if you're not Asian, how do I read this? And what do you hope I get out of it? Because you certainly don't want it to be, here's how you treat all your Asian friends handbook.
Oh, no.
Right. But so
No.
So how do I read it? Like, what lens do I need to put if I'm not Asian? And then, what do you want me to get out of this? How is this going to inform my life?
Yeah. So I think for the first part of the book, I think it's really helpful for all readers because we all bring cultural lenses to our faith, except that some of us, some of them have labels and other ones are just normalized in the church space. And so I think I really challenge readers to look at our theology and our beliefs with a sharper eye as to what has been culturally mediated versus what is really of God. And I think that can benefit all readers because surely, my Chinese American church had some cultural lenses that we put on like what we celebrated, like, the youth group kid that got straight A's is celebrated. Like, is that really of God? No, right?
What?
But the white evangelical church for sure has those cultural lenses, but we don't call it out. Or some of us call it out, but it's not called out in the main stage. And so that's one thing that I hope readers can get out of it. And then the latter part of the book, I think all of us can really look at our family stories and our histories and look for the ways that connects to how we experience God. And we can also use that to relate to others and to live in solidarity. So I think the piece about liminality and marginality, I mean, Asian Americans feel that very easily, I think, that we are liminal people, but even people who come from dominant cultures, there's always something about us that's kind of more marginal. And if we can really lean into that, whether it's our sexuality or different abilities, if we lean into parts of ourselves that feel less celebrated, we can really connect with others.
I'm going to ask you quickly, can you define liminality?
To me, it is kind of living in these borderlands. So whether that is, being like right now, this is different from what I talked about in the book, but for me, liminality is like still being in the church I'm technically still in an evangelical church, even if I don't agree with all of this theology. And also I'm in these like really activist leftist spaces online or in my activist life, and like bridging those spaces, like those are both parts of me and I'm kind of on the edges of both in some ways. And so I think liminality is being on the edges, being on the margins, not trying to be central, especially not in dominant culture, right? Like not trying to grab power for ourselves, not trying to grab a seat at the table just for ourselves, but being comfortable with being on the margins and learning from other people who are on the margins.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's just looked down upon, generally speaking. I mean, especially for Asians. Like I shared earlier, I didn't grow up in an evangelical setting, so I didn't have to deal with, my church telling me my Asian American, my Chinese traditions that I would do every year at my grandparents' house was somehow not of God. Like, I'm like, I can bow. It's fine. Like, I can light and I can do all those things. It's fine. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I grew up always like, yeah, that's fine. Like, you just figure out how you code switch and all that kind of thing.
Right.
But I can imagine like trying to actually claim that other piece. Like, was a reaction from your church as you were reclaiming this other part that may not fit within kind of the dominant culture? Like, how did they react to like, what's happening to Kristen? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think so. My church right now is a multi-ethnic church, so I think there's a lot, and it's a pretty diverse church in terms of like theological beliefs. So there's a lot of room, which I appreciate in the church. But I do come against. I think I'm probably one of the more outspoken and radical people there, and so I think I just had to become comfortable with disagreement and discord, which is not always easy for me. I'm not a confrontational person, don't like conflict, but I really value keeping these relationships that across differences, right? I really value being friends with, being pastored by someone who I disagree with on some fundamental issues. And so I just had to learn how to hold that tension and be comfortable, be more comfortable in it.
That's great. Because I mean, I hear of so many people that they kind of even start nibbling on these edges and all of a sudden they're traitors to the faith. Like all of a sudden, you're like in some extreme places, that is not, well, I mean, I don't know if it's welcomed, but it's certainly, creating space where you don't feel welcome. So it feels like this is a space where you had some room to do that.
Right. Yeah, and I'm super thankful for that the church has been spacious enough for that. I would say my parents don't know about my book, and there's a reason for that.
Really?
I know, it's like a little truth bomb right there. Yeah, I know. Some of my friends are like, they're gonna find out, and I'm like, I'm just crossing my fingers that they never do.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
So
yeah.
what if they did read it? This is what we could talk about parents reading our books. So anyway. So if they did read it, what do you think their reaction would be?
I think on the most harmless level, I don't know how far I can go there. I think there would be sharp disagreements with how my theology has evolved, and there would be, out of love for me, there would be fear of hell, right? And condemnation, and like that I've gone astray. So there would be big feelings and big conversations. There's already some of that because of how we're raising our kids. And, so it's challenging to not be able to speak honestly with my parents about it. But out of love for them, I am keeping it under wraps.
Well, I should tell you, they are avid listeners to this podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, shoot. Whoops.
I ruined it. That's funny. My mother is a pastor, so we have very different lives, right? So my mom, but she went to seminary after I did.
Wow.
She worked in like state legislature and then worked as a drug counselor, truant officer in a high school for a while. She's a short Filipino lady who people were just scared of. I don't understand why. And then went to seminary after I did. So my mom, I remember when I first started being a little more public and starting to get like hate stuff. And I always say when I get hate stuff, it's nothing like women who get hate stuff, because I'm just completely different, right? I'm called a heretic. Very little violence or threats of sexual violence to me. Anyway, but my mom would respond. I'm like, Mom, you need to not.
Oh, no.
Because I was an early blogger. I was like really early, and our denomination thought I was this heretic for like technology and everything. And so and it was fine.
Oh
Like,
my
and she's
gosh.
still super proud, Mama Bear. Like every committee she sits on,
Oh,
she's like, just so you know, I'm Bruce's mother.
that's
Like,
incredible.
I mean, she's her own
Oh, that's
person.
so
Yeah, it's
sweet.
very sweet. My dad
Yeah.
didn't grow up really in the church much. And I tell a few stories about him in the book. And I told him, I'm like, here, I'm going to tell this story. I'm not asking for permission, actually. It's my story. And so I
Yeah.
think sometimes
Hmm.
my parents are divorced. So sometimes he feels, I think, a little bit like he wants to be proud, and he certainly is. But he has contributed to my
Hmm.
trauma in life. And so, and I tell those stories publicly. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah. And he's like, okay, I kind of feel
Hmm.
bad. I'm like,
Right.
not about you, not about you. So that's so
Right.
funny. I can't
Right.
wait.
Oh.
I'm gonna have you back on. It'll be part two. They found the book.
Oh my gosh. I can't even. I can't think about it. Blocking that out. Blocking that out.
All right, so the book itself, you take us through a lot of things. There's a couple more. So we're both only children, right? You're an only child
Mm-hmm.
and I'm an only child
Hmm.
with my dad's side. My mom's side, she had other children after remarrying, and so there's four of us, which I'm so grateful, and we all get along.
That's great.
But that caught my eye because, parents going through their own seasons of life, and they sometimes call it the sandwich generation. Others call it the panini generation, where you're pressured on both sides. And you're really in it now because your children are younger than mine. So you're like, so what's it been like
Hmm.
being an only child? And the chapter I was reading is around, how do you heal out of expectations? I mean, what like, is you're challenging your parents, growing, but still having this deep sense of gratitude? I think obligation in the best form. Like, how do you navigate that with your family?
Yeah. Oh, so deep. I mean, what's even more challenging, my husband's also an only child.
Oh
So
no!
we have four parents that we get to take
Wow.
care of as they age. And I think what's challenging is, I mean, thankfully, all four of them are still independent right now, but
Yep.
age progresses. And I think I do really value caring for elders, which is just part of how I was raised. And I don't know what it will look
Hmm.
like. Are they all going to move in with us in our little Cambridge townhome? Are they going to, I don't know what it'll look like, but I am hopeful that we can be with them because I just, it's really hard for me to, well, okay, I will share this, that as a primary care doctor to a lot of elderly Chinese immigrants, I am always so thankful for their kids who take such good care of them if they're able to be in the same city, because it makes such a
Yeah.
difference to have family nearby. And so when I see that, I'm like, I want that for my parents, even when it's difficult and even when they find out about my book. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, so Asian American Christians, that liminality space, right? My Asian American friends are always like duty, honor, obligation, right? I mean, somebody asked me about kind of that honor and duty and obligation piece, like, is it negative? And I was like, no, actually, I see it as just something that I get to do, and I have to figure out how that works for my life. But I do, when we raise our kids, like there is obligation in its best form for you to stay
Hmm.
connected to this family. Like, we didn't raise you for complete independence. Like, that is just not how you were
Right.
raised. And so, but Christianity, American
Right.
Christianity is I think talks a good game about community sometimes, but then is like, no, ultimately American culture wins out and you're supposed to just be completely independent.
Right.
But your Christianity, your Asian Americanness, how did those come together in your commitment to family? You write a lot about family in this, which is not
Mm.
surprising. But how do
Yeah.
those things overlap? Maybe even conflict sometimes, but like family and your Christianity, how does that
Mhm.
connect?
Mm. Yeah, I do think it can conflict. And I think that centering myself on love is the only way to get through that because I think, yes, I do want to uphold my duty to my parents and in a positive way, the way you framed it. But there are things that they require of me that I think go against what God requires of me.
Mm,
And when that happens, I'm going to follow what God says, not out of, resentment against them or bitterness, but just because that's where God is leading me. So there's definitely choices I've made in my life that have deeply angered my parents, but I've always tried to stay in relationship with them. And that's how I love them, and that's how I honor them. And Jeff Chu in his book, Good Soil, I don't know if you've had a chance to read it. It's beautiful. He tells a story about, so he's gay and his parents are like conservative Baptists who don't approve. And he writes about how his way of honoring them, he's open to staying in a relationship with them, even when many of his progressive friends would be like, cut them off. Like they just approve of being queer, like cut them off. But he's like, no, I'm going to stay in a relationship with them, but I'm going to still get married to my husband. I'm not going to like subsume my own life for them. And he tells this beautiful story about like cooking with his mother. His mother's an amazing cook, and his father still refuses to visit him, but his mother will visit. They'll cook a lot together. And he talks about taking off the best part of the meat and wrapping it up and sending it back home with her for his father. And that's how he honors his father from afar. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because it is like, instead of harboring bitterness to how our parents kind of want us to conform to their image of what a good Christian is, we can let go of that and just say, I'm going to love you in the only way that I can, and be okay with that kind of tension and difficulty.
Yeah. I know. I think that is so good. I mean, I think there's this Western kind of, you hold your boundaries, and like they're very like, this boundary talk is so, I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like when it comes to family, I mean, there are certainly things where, okay, there's accountability, and there were times where our kids we just did not trust them to be with certain, it was just a lot. But there's also a certain level, my Chinese side of my family is very different than my Filipino side. But my Chinese side is like, I used to get really frustrated at our gatherings because we talked about nothing in depth. And then I realized that that is actually the gift that our family has. I mean, there's something about, we could, there's so much estrangement and anger and resentment that I think if you were I sometimes get there and I'd analyze everything, and I'm like, I shift into kind of pastoral care, analyzing, wanting to fix everything. And I've recently have been like, no, this is actually this is the best way we can love each other, is to be in this space. And and it's honoring my grandparents. Like family fell apart after my grandmother died, but we still, we just had our Chinese New Year celebration. We had 50 people at our house right before we moved.
Oh my gosh.
Because I love chaos. But it was like, we could gather in that space and be probably Western dysfunctional, but this is actually how we showed love to each other and my grandparents. Like we honored
absolutely
them. And there's so many times I hear when working with churches, with white or non-Asian pastors, often will go into Asian churches and see all these interactions and be like, well, that they just should do this. I'm like, well, let's frame that a little bit differently. They should just come and talk to me themselves. I'm like, that's not going to happen. I'm just like, that's not That's not going to happen. You can want that all you want, but that's not how you're going to pass it this church through. So anyway, I don't know. I asked myself a question and answered it. There you go.
I love it.
So, all right. Asian American Christian reads this book. What do you hope? I know you said if one person feels heard, but I'm the Asian American in a predominantly not Asian congregation. Even in multi-ethnic churches, I think sometimes Asians are not often there. Yeah. What are you hoping I get out of this?
I think because Asian American, there's a lot of Asian American Christian leaders, pastors, seminarians, professors who have amazing wisdom and insights to bring to us that really connect, because they already get a lot of the cultural things and history things that we've been through, but we're not often exposed to them in white churches or in multi-ethnic churches. And it's such a loss. It's such a loss. And so one of my main goals for the book was to distill some of this wisdom in some of these very academic texts. Like, they're really good, but some of them are written in a way that are not very accessible. So I was hoping to bring that into language and writing that ordinary people could understand. And so that
the regular
ordinary
folk.
Asian American Christian,
Yeah.
the regular folks, yeah, because like not everyone, even me, like I'm super interested in these topics, and even me, sometimes it's a chore to read like a highly academic text, right? So I hope that people can glean and learn from some of that wisdom from these amazing people through the book. I'm just a conduit really for their words. So that is definitely one thing. And I think it connects in a special way. There's so many different parts of the book, but even just like how we experience God, I feel like I was raised on the quiet time model where you pray, you read the Bible, you journal, and if you check that box off, you're a good Christian. If you don't, you're a bad Christian. And that just doesn't always work for everyone.
Oh God,
right?
they would have been like, Bruce, stop talking. Oh my God.
It's such a restrictive model. And there's good parts about prayer and
Sure.
scripture reading, but there's also so many other ways to experience God. And once I was open to that, it means that more moments of my day are easier to consecrate to God and give over to God because I'm more aware of the ways that I can connect with God during the day. And that has been really life-changing for me, and I hope for readers as well. So yeah, I think those are kind of two of the things that I hope people get out of it.
I love that every moment of your day is just easier. I mean, I think in the context of, we're recording this on what is today, March 4th, where the United States is bombing Iran, and and then I just saw that, I mean, it's just the world right now. I hope by the time this comes out, we have stopped somehow. I don't have confidence in that, but so I think we all need something that gives us a way to exhale if in these moments. I mean, so if you can, it feels like you're honing in on a group of folks that sometimes can be a little tightly wound, and so need to like just exhale a little bit. I mean, I do also think that what you offer is an off-ramp, not necessarily a rejection, but an off-ramp for folks who may be having inklings like this as well. The ones that you were having earlier, that they're like, I'm feeling like these things aren't quite matching up.
Yeah.
Who do I read?
Yeah.
Right. And there are some people out there, obviously, but it's glad to have you added to that list. All right. So we're going to do my last few things. The first is the nerdy and the niche. So this is what's the nerdy thing you do, the niche thing, the thing that people would not guess about you. So what would that be?
One of the nerdiest things I do is I lead an Asian classics read-along book group, where I really dive into the classics of Asian and Asian American.
Are we that surprised? I'm not sure I'm that surprised about that. I mean, that doesn't feel like a big shocking revelation.
That's true. But it is probably the nerdiest thing I do. And a lot of my in real life
is nerdy.
It's nerdy. My real life, my online friends are also real life friends, but my non-online friends don't actually know that about me, because I have a lot of friends who aren't on Instagram, aren't in the book space. And so they always are like, what are you reading? Like, why are you reading this text from the 1600s in Vietnam, right? We just read The Tale of Q, which is a really classic of Vietnamese literature.
Oh, yeah.
And I learned so much from them. And I'm reclaiming, the reason it's important to me is because for so many years, I believe the Western canon of literature was the be-all and end-all and the gold standard. And it's just not true. Asian culture and Asian literature has such richness to it. And so this is what I'm doing in my 30s and 40s now. I'm reclaiming our literary heritage. It's so meaningful to me, and I love doing it.
So I don't want to put you on the spot. Have you done any Filipino books?
Yes. The classic by Jose Rizal. I'm blanking on the name now. Mm-hmm. It's the Filipino national classic, and it's Noli Me Tangere. I'm not Noli Me Tangere. I'm mispronouncing it. Yeah. It was so good.
Okay. Good. I would give you Americanism the Heart. That is another classic.
I love that book.
Carlos Wilson, right?
Yeah.
It would be.
I love that book.
You know, you should read, if you like some academic, his name is Dawn Bulasan. She died a few years ago, and you may have heard about it, but she comes out of my church and community and did Little Manila in Stockton, huge historian.
Ooh.
That's awesome. I love it.
I would definitely want to read that. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Sights and Sounds. So I've been doing this podcast, and I had forgotten that I had named this segment Sights and Sounds. So this is the first people you're saying it as if you call it that every episode. I don't, but I like the name. So what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to?
Oh my gosh, I'm so boring. I only read. I don't watch or listen to anything. But
Okay, so let me ask you, does audiobooks, does that count as reading?
100%.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I do a lot of audiobook. But what am I reading? I'm reading so much these days. I'm working my way through the International Booker Prize long list, which is a prize for translated fiction. So I'm working my way through that list. It's quite good. The book I'm reading right now is very relevant. It's called All the Nights Are Quiet in Tehran. So it's about the Iranian Revolution and then the decades after that. And I just finished a book called The Renovation by Kenan Orhan, which who's a Turkish American writer, and super cool book with this metaphor for like this lady is renovating her bathroom in Italy, but then after the renovation's done, it ends up being a Turkish prison cell. And so there's all these beautiful metaphors for like political exile. She's caretaking for her father with dementia and how that feels like a prison in some way. So it's a really well done book. Highly recommend. Yeah.
You really don't listen to anything or watch anything?
I really don't.
Or are you afraid to admit it?
I really don't. I don't. For some reason, I don't enjoy TV. I did watch some Olympics recently, and I do watch hockey. We are Bruins fans in this family, so I do watch hockey. Even though I don't want to get into the USA men's hockey controversy, I was pretty upset about that. But yes.
I don't know if you watched the Daily Show, but they did this whole thing about how does hockey go from being so popular because of heated rivalry, and everybody's watching heated rivalry about these queer hockey players, and then to this, like, it's just like, well, there's this man, I guess. I mean, it's just like hockey has made this weird, like, it's just visible now in great and terrible ways. It's fascinating. Fascinating. Somebody's doing their PhD on it. They're going to be like, you remember the 2025-26 hockey?
Exactly.
That feels like a PhD. The hockey and culture 25 and 26.
Yes, exactly.
No, that's funny. Let's just end with one last thing. Oh, actually, let me ask you a question about your book. This just popped up to me because I love asking authors. Did you get to read your audio, or is there an audio? I assume there's an audio.
There's an audio. I did not get to read my audio. I wanted to, but I am thankful because the audiobook narrator actually found me on Instagram and commented, and she was like, this book was so moving for me to read. And she's Asian American. And so it was really nice to connect in that way. And so it's another person who's got to read my book. So I'm actually very thankful for that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I would give you a hard time if you got to read yours because I've not read any of mine. I auditioned for it. Valerie was very sweet. She's like, well, most of our authors don't read their books, but you can audition. I'm like, great. So, but it's funny. I've had two, and the first one, they just got the same person.
Oh.
Yeah, so now both audios are the same person.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I think he's the Asian American progressive Christian now out there. So
I love that.
Yeah, I'm hoping we've been in a little contact. I'm hoping to interview him. But anyway, so okay, one last thing. Leave the listeners with an encouragement, a rant, or a comfort.
Oh gosh.
Or all three.
I think my encouragement to listeners would be the world right now, and especially in the US, feels so fraught, and there's a lot of evil things going on, and it can just be really disheartening. But I think what has helped ground me is to do one small thing if I can. And whether that's to join our local rapid response network to, protect our neighbors from ICE, or to connect with one refugee family, or, leave an encouraging note on my friend's door. I think trying to harness our agency as individuals and then as a collective is what's going to get us through these next few years and beyond. Because there will always be evil in the world, always, no matter who's in office. And I think that leaning into where we can make a difference in small ways is what's going to get us through. So that's my encouragement.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you. It's about, 75-25, maybe a third leave a rant, which is people like, I don't want to leave like a rant. I'm like, feel free. Just go for it.
I love it.
Well, it's such encouraging people on this podcast. I'd be like, I'm ranting. I am ranting about pumpkin spice lattes because those are nasty. Anyway, so how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, easiest way is to find me on Insta. I'm at KTLEE.writes, like writer, writes. It was a very aspirational Instagram name because I was not a writer when I formed that handle. That's the easiest way. You can DM me there. But I also have a website, KristinTLee.com, and my email is linked there as well. So I would love to hear from y'all.
I'm shocked that you had to put the T in there because I'm sure there are very few Kristin Lees out there.
I get mistaken for a romance writer all the time. Like people tag me in posts.
Oh, is it so?
Yeah. So I'm not the Kristin Lee romance writer, just so you know.
Well, if you get some royalties off of that, or if there's some traffic, hey, you be whoever you need to be. Yeah, I have a unique name, which is great in some ways. Like if I Google Bruce Reyes-Chow, that's all we're getting. Like there's no other ones. No. My kids all have my wife's last name. Okay. And so I had three girls. And so our agreement was the girls would have hers, the boys would have mine. And then we didn't have any boys. But, so that has never happened. But I have my brother-in-law is named Ron Rivera, and that's a football coach. And so he's getting tagged all the time with just hate. Like, I'd hate to have the same name as a sports person because it would just be
too much.
People are terrible out there. All right, you all. This has been great. We Mend with God and Immigrant Daughters Reckoning with American Christianity is the book. Kristin Lee is the writer. You can make sure you pick that up from Broadleaf. Wherever you pick up your books, leave your stars and your reviews. I know folks are there's a little bit of overload with that, but it really does help us, especially those of us that aren't like big time writers.
Right.
Those stars and reviews, just cut and paste and put them everywhere. Really, it's very easy to do. If you could do that for us, that would be lovely. And get in touch with Kristen. The DMs are open apparently, so you can feel free to ask questions as well. So it has been great to have you on.
Thank you so much, Bruce. This was a joy and a pleasure.
Great. All right, you all. Again, thanks for listening. Do all the things for the podcast. You know what to do. And I will see you next time on The Amalgamation. This podcast was hosted by Bruce Reyes-Chow, produced by Emmy Hicks, edited by Desiree McFarland, with music by Marissa Magdal-Laron, and inspired by ancestors past and generations to come. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe to the Amalgamation newsletter at reyes-chow.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.